Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us this sunny afternoon it is on the Isle of Skye. My name's Nick Duffield, and I've been invited to present to you this afternoon about using MindManager for product research, design and development. I'm joined this afternoon also by Dr. Stephen Bashford, who's online as well. He's going to step in case I get in a mess. He will also be answering questions in the panel, so if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them in, and unless it's something that Stephen feels we should clear up straight away, then we'll answer them towards the end of the presentation. Just to explain, I'm on the Isle of Skye in the UK, and we don't have 21st century broadband here. We're still in the 20th century, so I'm on satellite broadband. That means that if there's a huge storm that goes over, I might go offline, but we'll reconnect as quickly as possible, and if I can't, then we'll finish the recording, and you'll get the link to the recording of the whole session anyway, but hopefully that won't happen. So if we can just hang on for the next hour, we'll be good. I've been a MindJet partner for a little over 20 years now, going right back to the very early days of MindMan, and been developing extensions and content and plugins and add-ins for MindManager over that period, and seen the evolution of what started out as mind mapping and is now really it's a professional information management and information processing facility that we have here in the product. So it's steadily grown over the years. The audience has grown, the number of uses has grown, and still people are finding it, discovering it, and getting excited by this visualization. So it's still a very exciting area to be working in, and you still feel as though it's leading edge, even though it's 20 years old, which is an interesting thing. And of course, the technology has moved a lot in that time. MindManager's got many more features now. Some of them are very specialized and some of them are very useful. So what I'm going to talk about this afternoon is using MindManager for product research and development, and really we're not going to look at a lot of detail of product features. It's not a tutorial in buttons to click in MindManager. At least half of it is going to be about choosing how to use MindManager for this type of work, and why you would use it, how it fits with your business culture, and how it works with other people as well. And these are really important things. I'll try and explain that. Research and development and this type of work has some special characteristics that make it a bit different to other kinds of work, and we're going to try to match that up with MindManager's capabilities and how visualization really helps with that. Then talk in the third part about designing and planning the types of map that you can use for research, design and development. And it's worth thinking about that before starting, because it could make a big difference to the effectiveness of the project over a long period. Then, having set that up, we'll look at the features, tools and techniques that are in MindManager today that will help you with that type of work. I'm going to really be talking mostly about MindManager for Windows. So most of I'm doing the demonstration on MindManager for Windows. Some of the features are on other platforms, on the Mac platform, but some of them are only on the Windows platform. So if you're using MindManager on Mac, the principles will be exactly the same, and that's really the bulk of the presentation, but some of the technical details about the features might be different on MindManager for Mac. So given that, let's start by looking at the characteristics of research and development and how this maps into what MindManager can do. There's many different disciplines in research and development and putting products together. You've got product management, which is more strategic, and you have to think about strategy, business plans, business cases, product roadmaps, that kind of thing. Research and design, you have to plan what you're going to research. From that you could generate requirements, We have to manage requirements. You might have issues to solve, and then you have to develop design and document that. And really what MindManager can do is help you to keep track of all these different activities. It may well be, depending on the type of product that you're putting together, you can't draw the specification for it in MindManager, but you could certainly use MindManager to keep track of that information and stay in control of it. And then moving to development, the kind of activities you've got there are planning, managing risks, lots of testing, and then making fixes and new versions. So if you're developing a product, it's likely, in most cases these days, that the product will go through a number of iterations and you'll have changes to manage. And actually getting it to the customer and supporting it means controlling release to manufacturer or manufacturing it, documentation, training, and handling support and issues. So there's a lot of different phases to think about, and they don't all happen one after the other in a nice neat order. They all happen to some extent in parallel. So even when you've got a specification, created a design, made a product, you're still looking at changing again later on. So that's a sort of snapshot of what R&D covers. And the characteristics of this, as opposed to some other types of work, is that this is an evolutionary process. It's a continually changing process. And what you have to do is deal with change, both internal, that you've chosen to change, or external, things like technology is changing, or markets changing, or customers changing, customers finding issues, new suggestions, new ideas. And the basis or the background for product design and development is one of continual learning and of evolution of knowledge and information. It's not a nice short event with a beginning and an end, and then you move on to something else. Generally speaking, products have a much longer lifetime than their development cycle. So it's not really a project that you finish and you hand over to a customer and then you start another one. When you design and develop a product, you've made a commitment that might stay alive for years. So you have to keep on building this knowledge and information platform. That's really the key characteristic that governs how you approach using MindManager for this. So how does this all map to what MindManager can do? If I do these in the wrong order, the first thing is to say it's very good at handling large amounts of information and detail. We'll come back to that. And the ranges that it can handle in two areas. One is the scale of what it can handle. So it can deal with everything from a post-it note to really a whole library of information. You might have many maps and many documents linked to them. Many maps that point out documents and resources that form a very large body of information. MindManager is happy with everything from one map with one topic in it right the way up to a whole set of interconnected maps and a lot of information there. So it's got a very large scale of what it can deal with. And the other dimension that it's very flexible with is the structure. So the structure of your maps can vary from a teenager's bedroom up to a perfectly organized warehouse. So in the first one, the teenager knows where everything is, and if you've got maps that look like a teenager's bedroom, then you'd not be alone. I think everybody has. You know where everything is and you can find it. Or it might be a really well organized warehouse where other people know how to find things. Everything is labeled. There's spaces, you can find whatever you need to do, and you can add things and take them out very easily, very quickly. Now, it takes no effort at all to make a bedroom untidy, to make a teenage bedroom, and that's what happens to things normally. There's a bit of entropy, they degrade over time. It takes effort to manage and organize things in really good order. You might say that there's very little creativity in a warehouse, in an organized warehouse, but then conversely there's very little organisation and cooperation in a teenager's bedroom. If you're working with a team, or if you're creating a knowledge base that other people need to access, it needs to be better organised, and that does take effort and time to do that. So neither is right and neither is wrong. It depends what it is that you're aiming to do, what kind of legacy you want to leave behind with this. So looking at the type of things that it can do, you can use MindManager maps to organize things, to navigate them, to track status through them. And there's a matrix that we'll come back to, we'll look at when we're looking at what types of map to create. But for product design, development and research, we could draw a grid, and in the columns in this grid we've got information that describes the product that we're creating. So it's strategy, it's architecture, the features, how it fits together, what components there are, what the user needs to get from it, all those kind of things that actually describe the product that you're aiming to create. And in the rows we have different layers, so things like research findings, a documented specification, the priority of what's important for us to do at this release or the next one or wherever it might be, risks, actions, testing plans, documentation, dealing with customer issues, whatever it might be, or design issues, so forth. So it makes a grid where the columns describe the architecture of our product and the features of our product, and the rows describe all the different aspects of those. This stuff multiplies up very fast, as you can imagine. So we have to find a way of managing this amount of information, ideally without duplicating any of it. And we'll come back to that issue at the moment. But that's the kind of information that we need to deal with in MindManager maps. Now, a key feature of MindManager is this ability to mix different types of very different information together. If we look at most other applications, they're single purpose. They produce a document, or they produce a plan, or they create a presentation for you, or they organize some structured data. MindManager maps aren't restricted to doing just one role, but it's a very common characteristic of the use of MindManager, in that people do tend to migrate towards that they tend to make a map which is a plan, or a map which is a document, or a brainstorm, or whatever it might be. So that's not a bad thing. It's really good to have a map that has a purpose. You know what you want to do with it. But it does mean that if you're working with a large matrix of different types of information, you may end up with the same information in more than one map by doing that. And it's a real strength of MindManager, and one of the things that differentiates it from other applications, in that you can mix these different types of information in the same document. You're not restricted to just making a plan. So, for example, we took Microsoft Project as an example. That's absolutely fantastic at planning projects, but it's terrible for a brainstorm. You can't do a brainstorm there. It's terrible for storing extra information and a bit of research that you came across that's related to one particular part of your project. It's simply not the right place to do that. But conversely, MindManager can do all of that. You can have both a plan and your research findings and your ideas and your questions and doubts and strategy, everything in one place. But it really needs to be well organized so that those things don't interfere with each other, so they all support each other. And the way that MindManager can do that is to, it's got a lot of tools and features that help you to filter down and focus in on particular aspects. So there are two general approaches. One is that you can manage what you see in the map, which is what we're doing here. We're just going through opening and closing topics. You can filter maps to reduce what's in there. You can focus in on one part of it. But you can also use the marker and the marker index, markers and the marker index, so that you can produce dashboards and other views of the contents of your map without having to have everything in view. You can see different lists in the marker index, and that's a really important aspect of dealing with large amounts of information without having to see it all at once, but still being able to find what you need within a few clicks. You don't necessarily have to start at the central topic and drill out all the time. There are shortcuts to that. Another aspect of this is that with the project planning capabilities, with the Gantt chart and the Gantt Pro feature, you can have a project plan that is embedded within a map, and you may not, that map might not be a project plan itself. It might not look like a project plan, but you can mark up parts of the map, topics in the map, as a network of tasks to do, and you can then see the project plan part of that in a different view. So you can sort of apply a filter effectively and see a large amount of data filtered down to look like a project plan. When you look at the map itself, the tasks are surrounded by the information that's needed. You know, they're in the context that where you're going to need it, and they've got extra data around them. And that's where MindManager really separates from single-purpose tools like a project planning tool or a word processing document, in that you can view your project in so many different ways, or your work in different ways, depending on what hat you're wearing that day and what goal you've got. Similarly, for presentations and for publishing documents, there are techniques that you can use to filter down a map so that you can present just parts of it to another project stakeholder, or you could publish a document from a map. We'll see a little bit of that later on. So MindManager's got a very rich set of tools and features that let you do all these things. And the role of the product or product manager or project owner for a product is to be able to use these features in MindManager to help you to manage a large amount of information, stay in control of lots of information. So if you've been using MindManager for very long, you know that maps grow very fast, very quickly. They can expand. You have a good idea and then you have 10 more good ideas, and they can run away very fast, and it doesn't take much for maps to start to become a little bit out of control, and you might know your way around it this week and this month, but in a year or 2 years time that could be really difficult. So these tools built into MindManager, if you use them from the very beginning, can help you to stay in control of maps and use them over an extended period. A lot of uses of mind mapping software are quite short term. They might be just to capture something, or to capture a brainstorm, capture a meeting, capture a conference or something like that, and they're done and then they're frozen. They're just a capture or recording of something. What we're looking at with R&D and product development particularly is maps that you want to be able to use for several years. You want to keep coming back to and keep extending. So it's really important to be able to manage the content and the features in there so that they don't become unusable and become separated from the project. So let's talk a little bit about designing and planning maps, how this will fit into your business culture. The first point is, which we talked about just now, is discipline. If you're working on your own, you can really do what you like. Let me do these in the wrong order, but if you're working alone, the only other team members are you in a year and you in 2 years, and you mustn't forget those people, because they'll have different things to worry about, different priorities. A lot of things will have happened in a couple of years' time, and you need to be able to come back to these things and use them again. So in one sense, although it might save time to just make some very quick notes now, you will spend the time you save 10 times over in the future trying to work out what it was you meant. So clarity now takes a little bit longer, but it pays dividends in the future. If you're working in a bigger team, then you're going to need more consensus and more discipline in the way that MindManager is used. You're not going to need agreement with your team members. about how things are organized in the map, how you want them to keep it updated, and how they can use MindManager to find things. So it takes a little bit more time, and it'll depend on what your working environment is, what sort of team you're working in, the acceptance of the visualization, the acceptance of tools like this, as to how far you can really take the use of MindManager for this. At the very minimum, it's a really useful vehicle for linking to other things. It might be that you don't want some of the data locked up inside maps, but using maps for navigation to other documents is still a really valuable technique. And the principles of the map organization we're talking about would work just as well if the maps are just hyperlinked to other data sources. A key point is choosing how to spend your hierarchy budget. Now that sounds like a funny thing to say, but when you start throwing information into maps, you've got lots of different ways that you can code that information and add extra context to it. You can add markers, add color, add notes to explain things, and there's lots of stuff you can do there. Hyperlinks to other stuff, attachments, lots of options. But the one resource that you have in the visualization that is the scarcest resource in the map is how it's organized, how the hierarchy is set out. And it's a scarce resource because you really need to avoid duplication in the map. You need to avoid creating a map where the same object appears more than once and needs to appear more than once. And that's the classic challenge of mind maps, and we've been talking about this for 20 years, how to avoid that kind of thing. So that the idea of the hierarchy as something that means things can only appear once makes it something you have to think about carefully before spending that, before deciding how to use it. Now the structure does two jobs. It provides navigation to help you to find things in the map. So it's an organizational tool. It also provides context so that the topics are they're not explained in isolation. They're in the context of their parents, and those are in the context of their parents as well. So at any point in the map, the meaning of a topic isn't standalone. It consists of all its ancestors plus itself, which means that moving things in the map changes its meaning, and again that's a really well established part of software mind mapping. You have to make an investment really in a reliable structure for your maps, a reliable organization, and the features you'd be really looking for are predictability, the ability to expand it, the ability to adapt it to something else, and really again to avoid duplication. So trying to find a structure that means in general things don't need to appear twice in the map for the map to be sensible and the map to be still usable. And when maps get too big, when they go bad, some of the reasons are the duplication that we referred to, things that are too cryptic or too short, a note that or a word that made sense on the day but doesn't make sense in a year's time. And this is a big difference between mind mapping, which is a memorization or a reminder technique, and communication or organizing information, where you don't want to write just a one word reminder of something. You want to explain it so that somebody else can understand as well. Another reason that maps go bad is that if things go to more than one place, there might be related information that relates very closely to what you're looking at, but it's out of sight in a different part of the map. You're not even aware that it's present. And again, the structure of the map, the hierarchy of the map, has a big influence on that. An error that I've made many times is to get context wrong. So if I got it right, I would organize my map as countries breaking it down into cities which have streets and streets have houses. Now, I haven't done this literally, but I've done this figuratively in many maps. If you get that wrong, if you break the country down into streets and then you think, oh, actually there's cities, and you try and add those later on as an afterthought, you can work with that on the day. You can cope with it for a little while, but later on it becomes really difficult to follow your map. It becomes very hard to correct. So I think my key message here is make the most of clustering things together in a map that are related to each other. An example, there's a couple of ways you see people using maps. One is to use it as a list making tool. For example, making lists of things that have to be done this week. That is a weak grouping. So if things are grouped together in the map by a shared attribute or a common attribute, that has value, but it's only a short-term value. That can go out of date very fast. But if you group things together that influence each other, that's a strong grouping. So that it helps you when you return to that subject to understand the bigger context, to understand the different constraints and needs that influence that, and the things that are grouped closely together influence each other, and that's a much better basis for more of a knowledge map rather than a dashboard map, and for understanding an issue and improving it and developing it further in the future. So if you can, try to group your maps, try to organize your maps in related topics rather than by date or by owner or by priority, because those are weak groupings. And that keeping related information together certainly helps you to develop ideas and insights. So there's lots of different relationships between things, lots of different aspects of information. But keeping things, but you can use metadata, you can use markers and other markup in the map to identify those so that you can find them. So I hope that makes a bit of sense. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that in the questions at the end. But I would say if you want to make maps that are going to last a long time, going to be used for a year or 2 years or more, then don't organize them by properties that are only valuable in the short term, like dates or owners. Organize them by subject and by context so that you can look at them. They make more sense later on. So the summary there is for product design and development, you're really focusing on creating a set of knowledge maps rather than dashboards. So let's have a look at let's compare a knowledge map and a dashboard map on the same product here. So I've got a little product, I'll call it widget X, and this is a map about the design and development of this product. And there's several different ways that you could approach this, but the route I've taken here is to organize it by stakeholder and to write user stories. So the top level map for this product, the project that's going to design and develop it, is organized by the people who are going to use it. Internally as well as externally. So the product owner internally is really interested in things like strategy, so that they've got some information in here. They've got needs that you need to meet, requirements you need to meet. System administrators will be interested in how you might install it, where you can use it, what support for that. The end users are interested in how you actually use it. So under the end users, we then break it down into the stories and the features, the things that are interested in them. And as we drill down, we have, maybe if it's a piece of software, we might break it down into commands and menus and commands. And then we write some requirements for what those are, and then we write some tests for how we're going to test that. And if it's if you're using MindManager to manage a product really closely, that is, if there's a lot of information about the product design and development in MindManager maps, you can go right the way down to an individual error or a bug or something like that, and you can have that in the context of the overall description of the product. So this this topic here, which is flagged as a bug, an incorrect error message, is in the map in the context of the test where that occurred. So it's a call out on the test topic, and we've marked test topics with a regression test with that little magnifying glass icon, and that test is in the context of the command that you're actually testing, which is in the context of the feature that the user uses, which is in the context of what it is the end user wanted to achieve with that. So this is a fairly natural way to use the hierarchy of the map to break down from user stories right the way down to the detail. So you might have a very large map with lots of little issues embedded in it. You spend a long time trying to find every one of those, but fortunately the map index will really help. This is a MindManager feature that lets you tag things, and then you can see lists. So the map index in this case, if we look at under issues and acute bugs, we've got that issue logged there. The map index is your dashboard. You don't need to create a dashboard map. You just need a kind of knowledge-based map, and the map index will create dashboards for you to help manage this. And we'll see an example of a project map where the map itself is far too big to ever see in one go. It's not designed to do that, and you really manage it through this map index. So that's a way to define a product and a project to develop it using an organization which is based on user stories, based on stakeholders in the project. If we compare that with the same thing but as a dashboard map, some of you might recognize this type of map, and I see them all the time on some of the map repository sites. This is a dashboard map where things are being organized by other properties, like what we're doing this week and who's doing it, what the open issues are, what's priority 1 and what's priority 2. And this is very useful stuff, but you can't really keep this kind of map going as a knowledge-based map over a long period of time. If it's not updated for a couple of weeks, it can be almost worthless after a short period. This isn't a long-term map. But I often see MindManager maps being created for short-term use. And that it has a use, it has value, but these are long-term maps. So that was a quick look at dashboard maps, difference between that and a knowledge-based map. And dashboard maps go out of date by themselves. Now, fortunately, MindManager helps you to create dashboards. You then have a choice of how many maps to create, whether you try and get everything in one big MindManager map, or whether you break it up into a number of maps. We looked at this this little matrix of information. If you split up maps into rows, if you have a map for specification, an actions map for the plan, a map for the testing, then you are required really to create the same product architecture, the same product description in each of those, or you go straight to dashboard maps. Fortunately, MindManager has got a lot of tools that help you to avoid that. So splitting the maps into separate rows isn't necessary if you're able to use MindManager for most of your product design and development information. You can use MindManager features to keep track of all these different aspects, all these different layers, and really only have the one description of the product design and architecture, which is going to be much more usable for somebody else who joins the project. It's much more of a knowledge-based map. So that dividing it up into multiple maps versus single maps has a number of disadvantages. So if you use lots of different maps, you're at risk of duplications and inconsistencies between the maps, and you don't necessarily benefit from having all the related information together in one place about a particular subject. In comparison, if you're using a single map, then you can much more easily avoid duplication and maximize visualization. And the disadvantages of single maps, the navigation, large map issues, and exporting to other formats are all things that MindManager features can help you to avoid, whereas there isn't really a MindManager feature that helps you to keep track of the same information or related information across multiple maps. That's harder to do. So most of the demo that we've got here is targeted towards using a smaller number of larger maps and using MindManager features to help you work with larger maps for bigger projects. The final consideration is what you might need to publish. You might need to publish training materials or presentations or documentation. If you're using MindManager for that, you might find that you do need to keep those in a separate map. It's a little bit harder to publish documentation out of a map that has a lot of other functions and features. So if the map contains your plan and your risk breakdown and everything else, it might be a little bit more difficult to extract a user manual out of that. There are some techniques for doing that, but in any case you might need to publish using a different tool anyway. But one way you could do that, if we go back to our widget X example, is by using map markers. You could structure the document as the user manual, and you could put everything in the context of sections of the user manual. So again, we can drill down to our little bug, which is in the context of that part of the user manual that describes using the save command and the file menu. So to test it, we're actually working through the user manual. And what we could do with this map is, if you right click on a marker in the marker index, do a quick filter and then hide topics with that marker, we can mark everything in the map that we don't want to publish. So all the material about the design, the development, the testing, the strategy, everything else, we can hide with a couple of clicks, and this map is now ready to publish as a Word document. You could convert that into a linear document as a manual for a product. So for a small product, you could base your top level map on the user manual and have everything in the context of that user manual and publish that. This means that you're not trying to duplicate information. Everything is only described once in one place, but you've still got the ability to keep track of other issues and tasks and everything else without publishing those to the user. So that was a quick look at some of the considerations for maps. Now I'll quickly show you a map for a project that, and this is a real project. This is one I've been working on. I know people love to see real things that aren't demos in these webinars, so I've taken the precaution of anonymizing it, but everything you're seeing here is actually a live project. This is a project I've been working on over recent months. It was to develop a piece of software, and I used the approach of describing the stories for each of the stakeholders in the project. So I've got some information about what it is that each of the stakeholders need to do, and then under each of those stories that breaks down into features, functions, and I've got everything that is a product feature marked with an icon, and I made those into actions and ticked them off as I did them. So in the map index, I've got a complete snapshot of where this product development has got up to, what all the issues are, who reported things, when they reported them, when it was fixed, what version it was fixed at. Lots of information all encoded into the map index, but all of this only in one map. So there's only ever been one map about this project. And there was another map which I haven't got open at the moment, but I did some work with MindJet on one of the MindManager features, and that was the reason I think that Stephen asked me to present this webinar, because he'd seen some of the techniques that we'd used in that map to keep track of the customer requirements, when they were implemented, what version, what testing was done, what bugs were found, when they were fixed, and all that kind of thing. So managing change over a long period of time. And the map from that was used for about 3 years from its beginning through to when that project was handed over. So that was a relatively long lifetime map. So this is a real example of a real project, and I can find all the risks in the project. I've got lists of deliverables, features in the product, what controls I use for risks, all kinds of things are coded up with map markers. And this map was really it was the heart of the product management and specification. So let's have a quick look at some features and tools that might be helpful in doing this kind of work. Something I use a lot is a favorites icon. So I reserve an icon in the map markers that I use to mark favorites, and I can go straight to those things. So I can find the most frequently used points in a map very fast. I use that quite a lot. That's another technique which I'm sure many of you will have seen before, is to have something in your map, a place in your map that is an in tray or an inbox for things that haven't been sorted yet. And that's a really useful way to keep your map clean and tidy, so that you have an idea or something happens, you can capture it quickly, you can go to the right map, but you don't have to stop and think about exactly where it goes, because if you get that wrong you might lose track of it if you don't mark it up. So an in tray topic is a really useful thing to have in the map. Another good technique is to always create a glossary or a dictionary of terms that you're using, and that's something that you would see in a knowledge-based map. So some way to encode a dictionary in there. We've talked about the marker index quite a lot, and the thing to learn are to learn how to use it for task management and priorities, how to create icons and tag groups. Now, a really useful feature in the marker index is the ability to hide completed topics. So if you have that switched on, then all the lists that it shows you are things that aren't finished yet. So that works really well together with task management, keeping track of status of projects. You can hide completed topics there. You can also do filtering on map markers, so that you can, if you want to, you can right-click on a marker, do a quick filter, and just show things that match that marker. And this quick filter is a lot quicker than going to the power filter in the menu. So I'd use that quick filter feature a lot in the marker index. An example of that is if you've got a map where you've marked all your test cases, you might want to manage those as actions in a different way than your project plan. So you could filter on things that are marked as test cases and see what's been completed without necessarily having to plan every single test that you make as part of the overall project plan. You can separate things out using that filtering. So, filtering and views, we mentioned the power filter and the quick filter. Show branch alone is a useful technique. That's the ability to zoom in on a part of a map and just think about that part of it, and that maps really well to the idea of clustering related information together. If you do cluster related information together, then you can focus on one particular aspect of something very well without having to worry about all the rest of it. So that supports that. The other really useful feature is show hide, and particularly the use of callouts. Callouts are really underrated as a MindManager feature. I think that they're underused, because the difference between a callout topic and a normal topic is you can switch off callouts in the view menu. So in the show, hide, and then view, you can turn callouts on and off in your map. And if you use callouts to write information about something, sort of a meta information, then it's very easy to switch that off and hide that to reduce the visual clutter. So one way to use that might be to have you have a feature as a topic, and if you get a bug with that feature, you put it in as a call out, and then you can display those if you need to see them. You can see them in the context of that feature. Task planning and project task management, project planning, obviously big features of MindManager. You have task roll-up, although task roll-up, which rolls up task information from subtopics, really works best if the map is a planning map to start with. It doesn't necessarily work that well if you've got tasks sprinkled across a much bigger and different type of map. There's the map roll-up feature, which is fairly new. That rolls up task summaries from one map to another instead of from topics to their parents. So you can roll up task information from a map that contains a part of a project plan and make that into another part of a bigger plan. You can roll that up. The Gantt views are useful too. So you can extract a project plan out of a map, which is more than just a project plan. You can view the project plan itself. And if we've got time, when we get to the Q&A, I can show you some of that. The last couple of things are slides and exports. Again, you could mark up certain topics in a knowledge-based map and just do a presentation from those. So if you're thinking about key points that you want to present to a stakeholder, they can be in the context of a bigger knowledge base, and then you just filter those out and extract a presentation out of that without having to create a separate presentation map, which then gets out of date. Now, the last thing before we go to Q&A, everybody on the call, when you get the maps, will get a little macro for marking topics with ticket numbers. And ticketing is a really useful part of keeping track of requirements and being very precise about something. So instead of trying to explain to somebody verbally, you remember it was the requirement the customer had to do something particular. If you've got things numbered uniquely, it's very easy to keep track of those. And again, with issues, if somebody reports a bug or an issue, or you have something that needs to be resolved, you can give it a ticket number. So this the little macro that you'll get lets you allocate. If I do a demo just quickly here now, put a topic in the map, right click on it and choose ticketing macro. It just puts a unique number on that topic and gives it a tag, so you can find the tickets in the marker index. You'll see them all listed in numerical order. It's very easy to keep track of things like that. So if your map includes bug tracking or requirements management, or things that need to be really precisely controlled, then being able to give topics unique ticket numbers is a very helpful part of that. So you'll get that macro.
Okay, great. Thanks,
Okay.
Nick. Thanks to all the participant, and I wish you a nice day. And I think the last words are actually for you, Nick.
Well, thank you everybody for taking part, and good luck out there. MindManager is a fantastic tool, and the more you know what to do and how to do things with it, the more you can do. It's got no rivals really. Okay, thank you everybody.
You know it would be great. The quarter's coming to a close, so please don't hesitate. Place your order right away.